Reny's a Maine adventure.
Hello, I'm Larry Seidlinger for LCTV. It is my privilege to bring you the 75th anniversary of RH Reny's, a true Maine adventure in shopping. We're standing in the very first store that RH himself opened in 1949, October 7th. And we're going to take you folks at home as we sat down with John Reny, the president and CEO of Reny's. We sat down in his office and had a nice chat about where the Reny started, where all the early adventures, and where it's going today, the succession and the plans for the future. We hope you enjoy it as much as we have bringing it to you. Thanks for watching. So with me is John Reny, the president and CEO of RH Reny's. John, you grew up in this business. So you literally grew up, about from the time you was much more than walking, Dad had you in the store.
Well, that's true. I think I started, according to my payroll records, when I was 5.
Well, you got paid anyway.
I don't think it was very much. It might have been a quarter or something back then. When you're 5 years old, that's pretty good. I mean, you could buy a lot for a quarter in 1955, you know?
What was your earliest fondest childhood memories of growing up in the RH Reny?
I think Christmas, because that was more exciting. You know, we actually, after a while, we used our barn out in Biscay Pond, as that's where all the toys went, because he didn't really carry that many toys, you know, through the year. But Christmas, we had toys. So they were all set up out there. That was like the warehouse. And so that was pretty cool, being a kid, to have all the toys out there, and then they'd feed from there into the stores. And yeah, that was pretty cool, you know, yeah.
Now, your dad, as a kid, your dad was a heck of a salesman. There was no
Yes,
question there.
Yes.
How was he negotiating as a kid? He loved to negotiate if you're a salesman.
Well, this is true. I don't know if he negotiated with us too much.
Dictatorship more.
It was kind of his way or the other, on the highway. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of negotiating back in those days.
And you came into the store as a young teen and worked weekends and nights after school.
Yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to go into retailing?
Wasn't then.
Well, I know you wanted to be a rock star.
Well, it's true. I guess it kind of changed when I got out of high school, got to college, and things were a lot different in the early '70s in the world as it is now. Well, it may have been better than it is now, but yeah, the last thing I ever wanted to do was go to work for my dad and Reny's and be in retail, and I did want to be a rock and roll star. It didn't work out too good, but I still play music. But you got to be a certain type to be able to really make it, and you got to be really good. And I wasn't that good. But then I worked around for a while. I finished college and got a degree in sociology. I started out in college in business, and got to accounting. And I was a good math student, but accounting just didn't make any sense to me. So I think I flunked that. So I had taken a sociology course, and I really liked it, and I actually got my degree in sociology. So after college, I went out and I worked at Hunt Brothers for a while. I did this and that, and I was kind of working for my dad, doing some maintenance work in some of the stores in the warehouse, and our manager in Bath got done for some reason, and he said, "Why don't you just go over there for a couple of weeks and straighten things out?" So, okay. So I went over there, but hair down to here and beard and
not your typical retail
no,
store
was not
manager.
The typical retail store manager, and I kind of found out I liked it and realized, I guess, some point in your life you realize some things you can do really well and some things you can't do really well. So you probably ought to stick with the thing you do really well. And I knew retail. I mean, we grew up in it.
You grew up in it.
I was the dinner table talk, So I decided this was all right, and my dad took care of us pretty well financially, and I just went on from there, and that was 45, 50 years ago. I don't know what the heck it was.
There's an old saying, your father gets smarter as you get older. Did you find that to be the case?
Well, exactly, yeah.
You didn't realize you were learning from probably one of the best that had walked the streets of Maine.
This is true. This is true. And you found that out as you got into the industry, what people thought about him, and they just thought he was a really smart guy, really smart guy, and very successful, and he knew how to do it. And you kind of never, when you're that close to something, you don't see that sometimes. You just think, well, he's just my dad, but he was really well respected in the whole community, business community here, and all the vendors we went to all over the country. I mean, they really respected him. So, because he was smart and fair, and he knew what he was doing. So,
Your brothers, you have two brothers,
Yep.
Bob and Mike.
yeah,
Bob followed you down the road into the R.H. Rennie's world,
yeah.
but Mike did not.
No.
What happened to Mike?
Mike decided he just never wanted to do it. He wanted to be outside. He was a lobsterman. He's got an apple orchard. He works in the woods.
He was the outdoors person.
He was the outdoors person, yeah. And I just never. I mean, he would come in and help sometimes, but I didn't like it. And if you don't like it, you know.
You don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah, you got to be miserable the rest of your life.
And
Yeah.
Bob has been in at your side for the last 50-odd years.
Yeah. Actually, he kind of started before me because he got married and had his first son, Dan. And so he kind of had to
He had to settle down.
not screw around like me. But yeah, he and I ran the business for the last 45 years or so, especially after my dad started to have a little bit of dementia. We kind of took over and grew it and stuff. And we finally ended up building this facility about 23 years ago, which we needed because we couldn't. We were over at Caston School and with a warehouse on the side of it, and every morning, Al Jasinski, who was the warehouse manager, come in and say, "Well, I got 72 pallets coming today. I got room for 4. What do you want me to do?" I said, "Well, Al, just deal with it because it's not going to get any better."
So, John, when did your dad go into? He started the old A&P store on the corner of Main Street and
Right.
Theater Street there.
Yep.
When and where was the second store?
Second store was Bridgeton, and that was, I guess, a couple of years after he opened Jamascotta, and he was pretty ambitious. And
What was the thinking about Bridgeton? Was that a big town? I mean,
No.
Bridgeton is not noted tourist town, definitely. but-
oh, big town in the summertime, and it's got some winter legs too. I don't know, and today, if you go to Bridgeton, it's a good 2 hours, good
Oh, yes.
strong 2 hours. In those days, there wasn't the highways; it was 3 hours to get there. So he would close the store here in Jamascotta and drive to Bridgeton because he opened a store there, and he'd work as much as he could at night, and then he used to stay at a guy named Marty McDonald's house. He boarded some people there and stuff, and he was a sign painter. And so Marty liked to talk, so
They were two peas in a pod if they liked to talk.
They'd talk at night, and after a week or so, he said to and Marty wasn't really happy what he was doing. He said, I can teach you how to run the store in like a couple of weeks, so do you want to try it? And he worked for us for 36 years. All his 4 daughters worked there. His wife worked there.
All at the Bridgeton store?
All at the Bridgeton store, yeah. And he was a great manager and a great guy. And but why he went there, I don't. Why would you go 3 hours away to open your I mean,
Yeah, I could see the Bath store or maybe Augusta or Gardner.
yeah, I know. I mean, they came. Gardner was actually number 3. But actually, he made a really good choice. I mean, Bridgeton, especially summertime, is like just huge.
That's a big store too.
Well, it wasn't. It was just the little store in the corner, and then there was an old grocery store that was falling down next to us. And I finally convinced the guy to sell it to me. So we took that and knocked it down and built on another addition. Then there was a bunch of stuff on the other side. There was kind of an old barn that was, somebody was using. So I bought that, tore that down, and we built another addition. So now there's actually 3 additions. 3 different parts to it. And it makes it very interesting. When we built the second addition, we should have gone 2 stories. But for some reason, the architect said it was too expensive. And we should have, because then we had to put an elevator on the other side. So we got 2 elevators there. But it was a really good you know, just instinct, I guess. You know, how would you know that's going to be a big, and in those days there wasn't really summer towns. You know, I mean, Damasceno wasn't a summer town.
No.
People didn't like tourists. They hated them.
They did. They did. We have a different opinion of them now, but
Exactly. You know, and I think it probably was the same in Bridgeton. You know, they just didn't like those summer people coming up to their lake cottages and stuff, and you know, pretend they're more important than they were. You know, so who knows?
when your dad had his first store, he didn't have a warehouse. Because I can remember as a young child, he had the warehouse up on the back street, the little Quonset hut.
Yeah.
But his first store, he didn't have a warehouse.
No, well, actually, the building next, in front of the Quonset huts, there was a barn, and then there was a house, basically. That was his office. And he had a little warehouse there. Part of it was actually a warehouse. I mean, it wasn't much you could keep there. I mean, it was pretty small. But then he put it in those two Quonset huts, which were, it was a third or fourth time they've been put together. So it was a challenge, making them watertight and everything. And I remember I put up insulation in them because it was so cold in the wintertime, your pen would freeze. You couldn't use it, you know. So
That's pretty funny.
yeah.
But your dad expanded fairly quickly. I mean, I don't know, how long was the second store, Bridgeton, after the first store?
Probably within a couple of years, I think. I'd have to look at
My earliest recollection of and you and I go back
yeah.
along many
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
You had multiple stores as a young child. I remember 5 or 6 anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he expanded fairly rapidly.
Well, the opportunities, as after he opened Bridgeton, there was a discount store that opened in Portland. I don't know whether it was Zayres or Grant's or whatever it was, but you know, it was a discount store, a big store with shopping carts and checkouts, you know, the whole thing. That was all new. You didn't have stuff like that. And he said in Bridgeton, and Bridgeton is probably almost an hour away from Portland.
It is.
And maybe even more in those days. He said sales went down 20% every day because this was a new thing. You could walk around with your cart and buy stuff, and you know, this was revolutionary in those days. So the thing that happened because of that became the shopping centers started coming in with discounters and that type of thing. Downtowns dried up. So all of a sudden these downtowns, which used to be the key retail center of the town, were going out of town. So the buildings and stuff were worth nothing, you know, all of a sudden. So you could go into Gardner and buy this huge friggin' 4-story building, brick, you know, right on Water Street for very little money. So he found the opportunities of being able to go in these towns, buy these stores, these buildings, and put a store in, which, you know, today would be $2 million or something for that building.
Oh, sure.
And get into business and kind of keep the downtowns. At first it was a struggle, but eventually we became the anchor of the downtowns, which we are in any downtown we're in. And that helped out all the other people because people would come to us because we'd advertise and we had cheap prices and that type of thing. So it really helped the downtowns that we went into.
He knew the formula, or he figured out the formula for what it took to operate in the downtown area.
Yeah. Yeah, and we eventually, that had to change because downtowns were different then. I think our first shopping center store was Camden.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and we actually bought the center, which had a couple of little stores in it and stuff. And that was a whole different thing for us because the stores were set up. It was one floor, no 2-floor, 3-floor stores, you know, which most of the other ones were. So it was a whole different way of setting things up. And then we bought, I think we bought our Belfast store and Belfast Plaza. We bought the whole shopping center there too. And since then we've really been in, we are downtown Portland, which is really the only new downtown store that we've been in.
Did that feel like a giant leap going into Portland?
It was.
Because you never had been in the big city market before.
No, we hadn't. And strangely enough, when we opened there, we had a thing for trying to hire people, and we hired all these people. They had no idea what we were. We were a store. They had no idea what Reny's was. Very strange. I mean, the biggest town or city in Maine, and we were unknown there. Now we're known, and we're doing okay there. Portland has got some challenges.
And you've moved into Bangor.
Bangor, that's been very good. Yeah,
that's your latest addition, isn't it?
That's the latest one. Yeah, and that's in the old Christmas tree shop store that they went out of business. And it's a really good location. It's right off the highway. I mean, you can see the sign when you take the exit.
Yeah, that's one that's not really in a downtown.
No. And most of our other ones, I mean, Saco's not, Wells isn't, we really had to get
a destination more, so to speak.
Destination, yeah.
John, let's go back a little bit. Your dad, I can remember my mom and dad talking about Bob was on his way to Chicago. He drove. He didn't get on a plane, and he was always driving.
Well, he would drive to New York.
To New York.
He didn't drive to Chicago.
But he drove to New York. But he did that like you'd going across the street.
Yeah. Well, he used to when.
And New York in those days was, today it's a 7-hour trip.
Yeah.
Probably it was 13 or 14 hours anyway.
Yeah.
It was all Route 1 driving.
Yeah. Well, he found when he first went into business here, he bought from jobbers in Portland. That's where you got merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were buying stuff in New York. So he finally figured out that's where they were getting it. So he started going to New York, and he would drive down and work and then buy stuff right there and put it in his car and then drive home. And and eventually that turned into plane rides, and he'd drive to Boston and take the shuttle, which went every hour from Boston to New York, work, and then come home. And in those days, after a while, we have stuff shipped. He didn't bring it back with you anymore because we were too big for that. But he was always looking for a better way of doing it, and that made a lot of sense. It was a lot harder. It was pretty easy just to go.
He was a quick study.
He was a quick study. Yes.
He was a very quick study.
Yeah.
But there was no quit in him either, because in his early days, and I don't remember it, but I've heard stories many times about how Bob would put a bunch of merchandise in his cars and go down to the point, down in Bristol.
Well, he did that.
South Bristol in his early years.
Somebody asked me about that. Sherwin Owen was in here yesterday doing an interview too, and said, "How long did he do that?" Now, I know he did it the first year because he got through Christmas. He opened in October, got through Christmas, did okay, but January, February, it's even bad now. It was really bad then. I mean, people didn't go to town. They didn't work. They were fishermen.
Sure.
They didn't fish in the wintertime. You hoped you get a deer, so you got to have some meat. So he did that at least the first year. Don't know how much after that, but I know people that I know who are my age or a little older. They said, "I remember your dad coming down to the house with stuff," and yeah, I remember that. That was quite something. But
well, I can remember he would not say no to a deal. I remember him selling outboards and skiffs and boats and about anything.
Yeah.
And my favorite sort of story, and I think I've told you before, was the Moonlight Madness with the fly swatters.
Oh yeah.
And everybody, he bought them for a penny and sold them 5 for $1, and everybody was walking around with a half a dozen fly swatters in their hand. What a fun story. Your dad liked to dig clams.
Yes, he did. He loved
That's when I really got to know your dad really well.
Okay, yeah.
Mike and I went clamming with him, I said to him one day, and I think I've shared this, and I'll share this with our viewers watching this. I said, "Bob, why don't you play golf or tennis or something?" And he said, "Other people do that." He said, "I like to be outdoors. Sunday, I like to go clamming."
Yeah.
And I know he never gave Mike his clams that he did. He gave them all to his friends, but Mike had to dig his own.
I know, exactly.
The Reny's brand.
Yeah.
You and your team have done a fantastic job marketing the Reny's brand. Mm-hmm. Where did the slogan "A Maine Adventure" come up? Reny's A Maine Adventure.
Actually, that was Mary Kate and Bob were someplace having a drink before dinner with a napkin. And I think Mary Kate kind of came up with it. That's Bob's wife. And we just ran with it, And it's a great thing because shopping's an adventure. And we're a real adventure.
You are.
New stuff in the stores. We send new stuff to the stores 5 days a week. Nobody else does that. as well as whatever we're replenishing
Sure.
what's sold. But every day there's new stuff, and that's one of the reasons we came out with the gray bins concept that we did in some of our advertising, because people, customers in the stores would realize when the gray bin came in, there was new stuff, and they're like, "What's in there? What's in there?"
Before you could even get it on the shelf.
Exactly. Yeah. What? Oh, look at that. Oh, wow. Look at that. So we came up with a whole program of pushing that in our ads and stuff like that, and that's, it's as I said, shopping's an adventure, and when something new is happening all the time, it's more of an adventure. You want to go in to find out what's going on because it's new, and that's a big part of the whole concept.
Well, you've got another thing that's out there, and people don't really probably think about it too much, but it's a thing called Reny's Touring, where you have people that this is their destination. They'll come to Reny's before they go on their wedding anniversary.
We finally came up with this, and this took us a while, but it's a passport program. And so they go to each store and they get it stamped and signed. And by the time, and when they get to so many stores, they get something. And when they get all the stores, they send it in here. And then they get to come and visit here. And they get some more prizes and a gift certificate and that type of thing. And I talk to them, and I give them a tour of the warehouse and show them some of the things that we have here. And we've had probably this month maybe 12, and I got 12 or 14. I got a bunch more coming. No, nobody coming today, but and they're pretty excited. And I said, you got to really love something to get in your car and drive to 18 different stores. And we've had some people do it in 2 days. That's
a challenge.
You're cooking.
Yes,
you're doing that, and you're not spending much time there. You're just coming in, getting things stamped, and getting in the car. But I thought, why? And this is you're not getting $1,000 for doing this. You're getting a $10 gift card, and you're getting some candy bars and some stuff.
It's almost a rite of passage.
It is, And before we started doing this, we did have people that did it, and they'd come in and tell us, or they write us, say, well, I'm in all your stores, and this is great. And one of the best things that I think I've heard out of this, the people who have done it, is they're just so impressed by the people in our stores. They're so helpful. They're excited about what they're doing. Oh, where have you been? Or you've been. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. And you don't find that anyplace.
I'm sure your dad learned a long time ago. You're only as good as your team around you.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you and your brother have carried that forward.
Do so much with two hands.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. The fun part of what I see the Reny's marketing brand is people almost wait for the next ad that's going to come up. Mm-hmm. And you have two characters, one being your nephew,
right,
and the other Melissa Karras Palmer,
right,
that has worked for you, a long-time employee.
Yeah.
They've become rock stars
in
this advertising business. And I'm sure there's some big marketers out there saying, where did these two come from?
Exactly.
Because they're almost like brother and sister. They go at it. So.
Right.
Where'd that all come about?
I think it must have been, I don't know, within the last 8 or 10 years, maybe less than that. But it just became, you're trying to figure out how to advertise, and you can get up there and yell about, I got this cheap, and and all this type of stuff, and it doesn't really get you very far, And I don't think anybody tells whoever the people do those commercials said, wow, those are great. They're not. They're terrible, And I'll tell you, I've been in this business a long time. Never had anybody on the street stop me and say, we just love your commercials. I mean, come on. I mean, it's not Jolly John anymore.
No, it's not. No.
But it's really worked well. And some people ask me, who writes the scripts? I said, no, they just kind of wing it. They got their thing, they got an idea, and they just kind of
grip it and rip
each other. Yeah,
grip it and rip it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I've asked that question of both Adam and Melissa. I said, now, who writes your copy? And
no, nobody does.
And that's what makes it so real, maybe.
Yes, exactly. And they have fun doing it, and they believe in what they're selling. They're selling the concept, the idea, the Reny's brand is what they're selling, and that's you got to believe in that if you're going to really sell it and come across that way.
Yeah, the Abbott, they're kind of like the Abbott and Costello, the straight man in
Yes,
the
exactly,
funny.
yeah.
And Melissa plays the straight, and Adam
Yeah.
is. I think she wonders sometimes what he's going to come up with next.
Well, it's true sometimes. And some of the outtakes, that don't get on, there's just some pretty big laughing, falling down going on.
So we're talking about Adam. He is your brother's. He's your nephew, brother
Yep.
Bob's, and your daughter Faustine.
Yep.
Are they and the next in line to? Are you grooming them for the succession?
Oh, they are in line. They are. They actually own the company, the two of them, and they get along. They both are committed to what they're doing. They really believe in it, and you got to do that, and they like doing it. And they're both hardworking. They're both smart. They're going to be fine. You know, I mean, because usually in a family business, if the second
difficult.
generation doesn't screw it up, the third generation's really going to screw it up, and I think we're safe here.
It's one of the most difficult things in family businesses is
Yes.
the succession plan.
Yes.
And you're right. The second or the third one,
Yeah.
there really has to be some good ground rules, which says a lot about the integrity and the culture that you've built here at RH Rennie's over the last 75 years.
Yeah, yeah. And we actually went through some counseling quite a few years ago when this was, imminent that something's going to happen. And as much as I thought that would be a waste of time, it was actually the best thing. Because we had a lady who did it who was just tremendous. And every so many weeks at 1 o'clock, we all had to sit down and talk. And she said, when she did it, she said, usually I have to try to get two people in the same room because they hate each other, But you guys don't. No, we don't. But you don't have time to sit down and do this. So we sit there for 2 hours and we talk, and she'd ask us questions. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And it made a lot of difference because you got all that stuff worked out instead of just saying, well, I can't do it today. I got to go here. No, maybe tomorrow. You had to do it. And that made a big difference. It was very, very worthwhile for any family business to really have that done.
You have nurtured the culture of it's not my job, or it's that culture that it's not my job, that it's everybody's job. You cross whatever has to be done.
Right.
It's all hands on deck.
Exactly. It's kind of the Rennie way that you do what you got to do. I don't care if this is what you're hired to do.
And that came from your dad.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He would
There wasn't anything he'd ask anybody else to do that he wouldn't do.
No, exactly. And that's kind of the culture we propagate. Is that's what you got to do. Make sure the managers know how to do what they're asking their people to do. I just saw. It's actually Home Depot. It's just decided that all their corporate people
need to work in the store.
Work a shift, a day shift in the store, to see what it's like, to see what they're going through every day. And it's hard. Working in the store is hard. You got people asking questions. You got people happy, people that are not happy. You got to deal with all that. You can't. You're just sitting there stocking the shelf. You got customers. You got things. And so it's kind of interesting because all our people are working in the stores all the time. We're visiting them and working them, helping them. They help in the warehouse. They do whatever we got to do. Everybody's doing it. So what it means to tell the warehouse to do something because you've been out there doing it. Or you're at the store. The store's got to do this. Well, you've been in the store. Wait a minute. We can't do that right now. That's crazy. So it really, you can see that even the big corporate guys are doing something we've done forever. And more out of necessity, you need people out there.
Well, Rennie's has been very successful competing with the big box stores,
Yes.
the Walmarts and the whatnot. What is the secret to that? Do you lie some of that to all hands on deck?
I think some of that, and you had to realize what they're doing when Walmart came to town.
That was a big battle.
There was like 20 Walmarts all of a sudden showed up, and they were really good at what they were doing. We used to be the cheap guy. Rennie's was the cheap place to go in Maine.
You were the working man store.
Right. But when they came into town, you realize you can't out-cheap the cheap. They can do it really well. So we had to start looking at different types of merchandise to carry, like Columbia and Carhartt and Timberland boots and stuff that they would never have.
Because of the price.
Yeah, the price was a little more, but they were quality, and people realized that. And we tried to be very fair on our prices. I mean, you can't sell a Carhartt coat for half price because it just doesn't work. But, you know, so we had to do that. We also learned, right when they started to come out, I think we were in Florida and we went to a Walmart down there. They were there, you know, and they were just a really big store, stacked right to the roof with stuff, just like our stores, just stacked to the roof with stuff. But they're also very clean and nice and well organized, and you're going, and we weren't great in that. And realized, you know, you can give people a bargain, but they need a decent place, a nice, clean, well organized place to shop. So let's do that. Let's really work on that. And sprucing up the stores, renovating the stores. And I think that made a big difference too, because just because you have cheap prices, you don't have to have a crappy store to sell them. You know, you can have a nice place to sell them.
So that takes me to my next question, the Reny's Underground.
Yeah.
Which probably that exemplifies what the Reny's shopping experience is all about. That was something that was kind of out of your wheelhouse a little bit. You were selling socks and underwear and coats and jackets and stuff like that. But the Underground has everything from tissue paper to fly swatters to everything, screwdrivers and everything in between.
Yeah.
Where did that come about?
Well, it came about actually because my dad bought I think a Newberry store in Holton or something that had a fire, and then it snowed. But he bought all the merchandise cheap. So we had just opened up the Quonset huts, which were our warehouse, are going to be our future warehouse. So we had like a Chinese laundry in there. It's because everything was frozen. You had to try it out and thaw it out, and we needed a place to sell it. So you remember the pool, well, it was a bowling alley. Mm-hmm. It was a pool hall. And then that went out, and it was just an empty basement space that God knows nobody wanted. So we could rent it for like nothing, and we put all that stuff in there, and it sold really well. So my father said, well, why don't we just keep it going and keep putting new merchandise in there? So we did. And I think you can remember that to get in from the back parking lot, it was a dirt floor, a wooden walkway about 3 feet wide, single light bulbs. And that was the only way to get in from the back. And the front was just like a 3-foot door that went down some stairs, and that was how you got into the store. And it actually did very well. So it just kind of came out of a necessity to have a space to sell stuff. And that if it's working really well, keep doing it. Why not? You know.
And that's now morphed into probably one of the few stores that has a soda fountain,
True,
a coffee shop,
True,
right inside the store. So, you know, you get tired of shopping, go have a cup of coffee and start over again.
Well, you know, when we took over Waltz's, which was the drugstore, because their family and our family owned that building, and they went out of business, unfortunately. And so we took over the top part for our shoe department, which was really great. And, you know, if you were really smart, you would have just tore that soda fountain out and sold stuff where you made money up there. But it wasn't the right thing to do. It was a smart thing to do, business-wise, but it wasn't the right thing. Because that was kind of like an eclectic place. I used to sit there and have coffee in the morning. You did too, probably.
We as kids hung out in front.
Yeah, we got kicked
Dana
off.
McClune would run us off.
Right, or George Hutchins.
Or George, yeah.
But it was the right thing to do. So we decided just keep it. And the Waltz's, Dean and his sister and stuff kind of run that part of it. And, you know, it's an enigma. Every store used to have a lunch counter.
It did.
Or something like that.
J.J. Newberry's was famous for it.
Sure, exactly. You know, you go and get a burger and a cup of coffee for $1 or 50 cents or something, you know. So it was the right thing to do, and we're really glad we did it, you know. And people really just like it. I mean, during Pumpkin Fest, they said the biggest day they ever had was Saturday.
Oh, no.
Ever had. And they were selling grilled cheese sandwiches, you know, ice cream.
They certainly had plenty of people to sell them to.
Oh, they did. Yeah, exactly.
John, before you're going to take us out, maybe take a walk through the warehouse and show the folks at home here in Lincoln County and about. But where the future looks bright for Rennie's, and you've got a great leadership team. Do you see more expansion in the future?
Well, we're going into Waterville next year. Interesting enough, a lot of these landlords are coming to us. There's a J.C. Penney's that's been there for probably almost 40 years. It was a Mammoth Mart before that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we just found that out because when they're doing the renovations there, they found out Mammoth Mart was there first, and then J.C. Penney's went in. And so the landlord there just wouldn't renew their lease, which had come up in September, because there's going to be issues there. I mean, there's kind of a company that may not be around forever, and they've come to us. So we're going to take over the store, or about 2/3 of it, and I think it's going to be a great place for us, you know. So we're still looking for some other places in Maine, you know. I don't think we're going to go out of Maine for a while, but because we're a Maine company.
You're a Maine
you
company.
know.
There's plenty of people in Maine that love Rennie's.
Exactly. So we're still, I mean, we open at the most one store a year, and sometimes 2 or 3 years before we open another one. And we opened 2 one year. We opened Portland and Topsom, and we'll never do that again.
That was an all hands on deck.
That was too much of an all hands on deck.
So as we move forward, does online shopping, do you see a presence there?
You know, we've got some of that. It's not good. It's not great. Unfortunately, we can't put most of our really good stuff on because you can't advertise it. Because if you just can't, because we're selling it cheaper than anybody else.
It's another whole business beside into itself.
Yeah. So, and you know, I mean, I'm not a online shopper. I mean, most people are. But how would you ever shop one of our stores online? You wouldn't live long enough to look through all the stuff we got. And by the time you got through it all changed. You know, I mean, I think it's really good if you know what you want, and size 12, this pair of shoes, easy. Boom, got it. I get it tomorrow. It's right at my door tomorrow. You know, but if you want to really look around and look at stuff, and as I said, it's entertainment too. I mean, people like to shop.
Tire kicking is the one of the oldest professions. I mean, people love to do it.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons too that we insist all our buyers. I mean, we go to a lot of shows. Our clothing people are in New York at least once a month, and we have some finders in New York. And you got to be out there. Number one, making contact with your vendors and getting a relationship, so important. Also, a lot of stuff you buy, you got to touch it and feel it. That looks really. Oh, geez, that's not very good. I guess I don't want that. You know, or I do want it, you know. So, I mean, I think that, and that's something that's going away. Ever since the pandemic, a lot of companies and new young buyers are just sitting in front of the computer doing Zooms. They don't know the other person. They don't know their mothers, their fathers, their families, their kids. They don't know anything about them. It's just that. And, you know, buying it on Zoom is better than the old days when you used to get a black and white fax for an offer. But still, you know, and relationships are everything. And why do we get the call when somebody's got a great deal? Because they know us, they like us, we pay our bills, we don't fight them, you know, we treat them fair, and they know they're going to get a good deal from us, and we're going to give them a good deal. So that's so important in this business, so important.
Well, John, we don't want to take up any more of your time, but let's take a walk through the warehouse.
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty.
Okay.
Warehouse, the brain trust. This is where it all happens, right, John?
This is our main office, yes, right here. You know, something that we built this 20-something years ago, and one of the things that we had to deal with is it had to be sprinkled, and there's no town water here.
So you drill a well.
No. So we have 90,000 gallons of water underneath this part of the building. and we have a 100 horsepower fire pump, which is also and a 52K generator, which runs the whole place anyway, but if power went out, that would run the fire pump to run the sprinkler system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All
Because
this,
we couldn't have got insurance.
you get the water off the roof?
No, we filled it up. I mean,
Or you fill it up?
well, we did years ago, and we already had to empty it at one point because we had a problem with the pump, and they had to take it out. The thing is like 20 feet long, and had to get riggers to bring it up through out in the warehouse, and yeah, it was quite a job. But we had to do that. We never would have got insurance there because you got so much value here that runs the whole chain.
Sure.
If it ever
This
went
is the
down,
brain. This is
it.
the brains right here.
Yeah.
Some of these pictures on the wall.
Yeah.
Your father. Mm-hmm. Boy, what a great picture.
It is a great picture, and interesting enough, the guy who took the picture, this guy right here, Ben Margot, he owns this picture. He's a professional. I mean, he took 1,000 shots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he owns this picture. Anytime we use it, we have to put in it's by him. But it is good. That really captures it.
It does. It really captures the happiness.
Yeah.
The just the excitement of being alive.
Yes, exactly.
It really. I mean, he was that type of guy. Had this big belly roll. Belly laugh. I mean, just he was just. You knew when he was in the room.
Exactly.
Funny story. I said to him down on the Clam Flats one day, I said, Bob, you're a really smart guy, really successful. Why don't you run for governor? You'd get elected. I said, you're way smarter than any of those birds. He said, Larry, let me know. And I was, of course, your age, a lot younger. He said, I can get so much more done not being in office than I could ever being in office. And he probably was right.
Yeah, it's true.
He probably was right.
He did a lot of...
politicking he was good at it.
He was good. He was in the legislature all the time up there. I mean, not as a not as a legislator, but as a
kind of like a consultant.
Consultant, yeah.
Or a lobbyist.
Lobbyist. He was a lobbyist, yeah, and he was there all the time. He loved it. I would hate it. But he loved it.
Mike looks like him in that picture.
A little bit, yeah. This is because that's the main store right there. And we looked at this, he's looking at this, I think I got an idea. Because he worked for Centers, he worked for Murray Center.
Murray Center.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting story in itself.
Well, it is, because he worked there and he also boarded at Murray's house. And after a while he asked Murray for a raise, and he gave him the raise and raised his rent the same amount. So,
Murray wasn't any fool either.
No, he was not, no. So he decided he'd do something across the street, and worked out pretty well for him.
And the one person we haven't spoke about is your mom.
Yeah.
She was a local girl.
Yeah.
Dad was the general manager of Round Top.
Right, yeah.
How did they meet?
Don't know exactly, except my mom said, she said there wasn't much around here. And somebody knew. For guys, I guess.
I mean, he was from the Biddeford Saco area.
Yes, yeah.
Dartmouth graduate.
Yeah.
Was he in the service?
Yeah, well, he went
Navy, wasn't he?
He was in the Navy and went to Dartmouth on the ROTC program. Went through it in 2 years. It's pretty good.
Pretty good. That kind of.
And he actually ended up getting on a ship, going to war, and then the war ended. He never got there.
He never got there.
No. So.
Interesting.
Probably a good thing.
Interesting. In some of your very early
this
RH Rennies on the corner.
Opening day.
Opening day, October 7th, 1949.
Yeah. And this is the main store, which everybody knows, but it didn't go all the way back. There was another something in the back, and because there was a door in the back, there was another enterprise back there. And there was no upstairs at this point. So yeah, this was it. And he said he didn't have much merchandise, so he tried to put empty boxes where he could on the shelves to make it look full. We don't have that problem anymore.
No. Interesting. This is like a trip down memory lane for me, John, really it is. And this over here, thank you for shopping Rennie's.
Yeah.
The Wyndham opening, 2016.
Yeah. And that's been a good store for us, right on the way to Bridgeton.
Yes.
Before Bridgeton. It's
yes.
about 3/4 of an hour before you get there. Yeah, that's been a good store. There again, the landlord came after us. Big Lots was in there.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they wanted a reduction in the rent, and he wouldn't do it and kicked them out and came after us. So we got a great store there. It's a beautiful store.
Okay, let's go over to the warehouse and
All
see
right.
where all this happens.
Okay. So this is the warehouse and distribution center. It's about 130,000 square feet. It started out being about 100,000. We've added on 5 or 6 years ago another 30,000 down on the other end.
Is it big enough yet?
No, it's never big enough. Never big enough. Never big enough. But that's about all we can do here. I don't think we can go any further. But it's made a huge difference for us. I mean, we're able to open new stores and really keep track of your merchandise better.
Inventory control is going to be a challenge.
Oh God, yes, it is. Everything. We have a new computer system we put in about 4 or 5 years ago, which is working out very well. But everything's located. Everything has a location. So when it comes time to replenish, the warehouse pickers can know where to go to get it and take that many and send it to whichever store they're sending it to.
Do you have a set every day that we need to pick X number of items for Gardner and X number of items for Bridgeton and Bath, or does everybody get the same thing every day?
No. I mean, they get, well, number one, you either get stuff that we're replenishing, and it depends on what they sold. So the buyers all control that. Mm-hmm. They look at what's sold and what we have in the warehouse, and then they send
all that information comes through computers and
yes,
yep.
yeah. And then also anything that comes in new, also the buyers distribute the way they want to distribute it, you know. And it's pretty, and it's everybody gets about the same merchandise. Some of the smaller stores don't get some things the bigger stores do. And the quantity is different. Mm-hmm. The bigger stores
Sure.
get this much, smaller stores get this much. So it works out pretty well. This is all, as you see, lined up here. Now the trucks are gone this morning, but every one of these is a different store. And this is what we call the line. This is all the stuff. This is new. This just came in. This just came in. Most of this just came in. And so it's been received, and it's been labeled for whichever store it goes to. So it comes over here, and then the guys break it all down, palletize it over there. So it will be Monday morning now. That
you're always working a day ahead. You have to, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because a little earlier this morning, this would have been all done, and now this is all new.
When you first started selling food,
yeah,
that was different too.
Oh yeah.
That was way different.
Yeah.
And I think you told me Cheez-Its is a big seller.
Yes.
Because as you know, we've been involved in some of these hurricane reliefs over the years and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you've always donated a pallet of Cheez-Its.
Yeah.
And it's one of the first things that people want to grab coming
Really?
off a hurricane. They've been through a hurricane and they want a box of Cheez-Its.
Really?
I guess maybe,
Well, you can eat it right away.
You know. But selling food, that was a whole different bunch of retailers or wholesalers you had to deal with.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And
building those relationships once again.
Yeah, and I was kind of responsible for that. That was my part of the buying that I did. And we go to the food shows, we go to the fancy food show, we go to the there's different closeout people shows and stuff like that. And it's a great business, and it's one of our driving things right now. Because people know food prices.
Oh, they do.
And we're cheaper than Hannaford. We're cheaper than the other
You
stores.
certainly are. I will attest to that.
Okay. So, if you can get people to come in for that, hopefully they're going to buy something else while they're here.
When you first came up with the idea of selling food, did you feel like a little fish out of water? Because food wholesalers are a whole lot different than people selling shoes or pants or shirts.
Well, yeah, it was different. And also there's a pair of shoes are good forever. Food isn't.
No.
Especially a lot of the stuff we buy is actually a little close dated, and it's too close dated for the big guys to take. So, but if we can get it at a cheaper price, sell it quick, it's okay.
Yeah, turn it over quick.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we do. But yeah, it's a great part of the business, and people, it just brings in people. I mean, we sell olive oil cheaper, we sell this cheaper, that cheaper, you know, so you go buy it in our store, then go to the grocery store and
Sure.
buy what else we don't have. So.
Sure. This is pretty amazing, John.
Yeah.
This is pretty amazing.
It's a big place. And when we first did it, of course, we set it up so you could get a forklift down the aisle and turn. Well, of course, that's stupid. Because then you end up not having enough room, and then the aisles get full of stuff, and then you got to take it out so you can get the forklift down there. So then we bought Drexels, which are machines that go like this and can go like that. And so then we had to redo the whole thing and put the aisles closer together. So now you end up with more storage space. So, but it was a learning curve. That's how we did it in the old house, so you didn't know any better. You know?
Yeah.
So all this over here is actually stuff that hasn't been received yet. Now, normally...
You've unloaded it off a truck.
Yep.
I saw a big Peterbilt out there this morning as we pulled in.
Yep. And this is actually going to the police department for Halloween. But usually this isn't out here. But this time of year, we're so cramped and stuff. That
Well, you're gearing up for your Christmas season.
Yes, yeah. We have been for the last couple of months. So this is all stuff that hasn't been done. Well, actually, some of this just hasn't been put away yet. And all this over here hasn't been received, which normally wouldn't. Emerson pallet, huh? Normally this would be all empty, but and we're getting it. We're finally getting caught up. But it's just so much comes in this time of year for Christmas, for winter, for fall, and it's all. You got to get everything in. You can't get a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow.
And you have to take a good deal when it comes along, whether you need it right then or not.
Exactly.
So you may see bathing suits in October that nobody needs in October.
Right.
But you got to wear. But you buy them because you can make money on it.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you deal with a lot of the local trucking companies.
Yeah. A lot of them come through here. We get a lot of stuff through, who is it? Who's the broker we use?
Memic?
No.
Not Memic, that's insurance.
They're up in Palermo.
Yes, I know who you mean, but I can't think of it right off the top of my head.
They do a lot of it for us.
Yeah.
I mean, they put things together, bring people back, and sometimes we make multiple stops for a stop charge, which makes sense.
Yeah. You probably have a lot of multiple LTL type stuff where you're getting 5 pallets here and 3 pallets here.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Truck driver's nightmare.
Yeah. So this normally is where all the freight that comes in through these 2 doors is set up until we can get a chance to receive it and work it and stuff. So we're so overloaded now that all this is taken up with what would normally be over here. But it's starting we get a freight list every day from Chuck that says what's coming, how many pallets, blah, 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 blah. So it's sometimes it gets up to 3 pages, and it gets down to 2 pages. Now it's like not quite a page, so that's all good. So so this right from there on
is all new.
This is all new, 30,000 square feet. And when the kids actually wanted to do it, I said, it's just January, September, we get a little crowded, but I don't know, we really need to, we did it.
Do you see?
You know what? if we didn't do it, all this stuff would be outside. So they made the right move. This has helped out a lot.
Do you find the younger generation maybe more forethinking?
Yeah, probably.
A little more ambitious in their thinking. You and I are our best days are behind us.
Yeah, exactly. So we just got in a whole truckload of windshield wash. Which,
you
go through. Yeah. So this
is great. This is great.
Well, it's the first time we've had. When we moved out here, it was the first time we had the real thing. You had a real warehouse. It was the Quonset huts, And then it was the Casson School and the warehouse we built onto there. And it was 2 floors and a conveyor. It was, it was kind of a nightmare, but it all was better than what we had before.
But that's to me, John, that's part of the mystique of Reny's.
Yes, true.
You're homegrown, and you started in the one-room bedroom,
Yeah.
and you kept building bedrooms on as the kids
Exactly.
came along.
That's right.
Kind of, really.
Yeah.
That's kind of a simple analogy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but that's what you did.
Yeah.
And you did, like you say, homegrown. You did like the family does, whatever had to be done.
Yeah, exactly.
In my family, we split wood and grew peas and potatoes, and
Exactly.
and that's the way it was when we grew up. It's interesting. It's interesting. Your dad built the business that way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you kind of had to.
He didn't have any choice.
No.
He had Mauser. He had a wife at home and 3 young boys,
That's right.
and he had to work and work
That's right.
hard.
That's right. Exactly.
He had to work and work hard. Well, this is great. So we want to go down to the stores?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, super. John.
Sound. Hi.
So this is where it all started, 75 years ago this month.
Yeah, it is, right here. My dad started his first store with just about half the first floor and no upstairs. No.
The old A&P store.
That's right, that's what it was, yeah.
It's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
A lot of memories.
Yes, exactly.
You could write a book on memories. Let's go inside and just show us a little bit of how it's changed.
Sure.
John, how much has this store changed? Not a lot.
Well, no, except it's a lot bigger now. Well, a lot of it's the same size, but
There wasn't a second floor though when you started.
No. I mean, there was something up there, but it wasn't us. And also, we only went back about halfway. And in the back part, there was another business that came in through the back door. Yeah. So it's definitely changed, and it's one of our smallest. It is our smallest footprint, and as you can see, in the old days, my dad had to put stuff on empty boxes on the shelves, make it look full. And
Don't have to do that anymore.
not that problem anymore. No.
It has a special place in your heart, though, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yes, definitely.
I mean, this is like where it all began.
Yeah. And this is that's just how it started. I mean, he sold whatever mostly it was dry goods, clothing and a little bit of this and that. And as you can see here, display rack built by Robert H. Reny for opening, October 6, 1949. We still offer a lot of ourselves. Well, you can say it's not too good because he wasn't a very good carpenter.
He was a better salesman.
He was a better merchant than he was a carpenter. Yes, exactly.
These are an antique relic.
It is.
I mean, it's 75 years old.
Yeah.
And it's just
Still working.
It's still working.
Still working.
It's like you,
Stuff.
John.
Yeah.
We're pushing 75 years
Yes,
old. We're still working.
Here we are. I know.
That's good. That's good. And you're going to take us over to the underground,
Yeah.
which is a completely new Reny's
Yes,
adventure.
it is. It definitely is.
Great.
Yes. So let's take a look.
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
In the underground,
Yeah.
which is really the main Reny's adventure.
Yes.
The main adventure is in this store right here because you cover the gamut from food to soups and nuts and
Exactly.
socks and shoes and the whole 9 yards.
Everything. Yeah. And health and beauty aids, medicines, all that type of stuff downstairs.
And downstairs was the old bowling alley.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And I told you how we took that over when we had to have a place to sell.
And this was the
stock.
first national grocery store.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Where I worked as a kid.
Yeah. Well, I worked across the street at the Yellow Front.
At the Yellow Front.
Yeah.
We're dating ourselves, John.
I know.
Let's take a tour through a little bit through the underground, show the folks at home what they're missing if they haven't been here.
Jeez, I know. I don't think many of them haven't been here.
No, I don't think so. So, John, tell us a little bit about this painting.
Well, this was actually, we looked at the photograph that was taken of him years ago, and I think the deacon of the Catholic Church here, St. Patrick's, was a watercolor painter, and he took that photograph and repainted it. So it's really pretty much the same thing.
It's pretty lifelike.
Yeah, Yeah,
Pretty
it's great.
neat.
Yeah.
So we're in the underground, the true underground,
Right,
the old bowling alley,
right. And-
concrete floors and the whole
yeah,
9 yards.
Yeah. Well, this is where the alleys were down here.
Yeah.
And this is where you sat and got ready for them. And there was a lunch counter over there. And then it turned into a pool hall. If you go down a little further, you can see the holes in the ceiling.
And in the back in your little warehouse was where First National,
Yeah.
that had the grocery store upstairs,
yeah.
that was their warehouse.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. As well as across the street, which is the basement.
Yes, Yellowfront was down in their basement.
Worked down there. Yeah, yeah.
And whose idea was it? Or did it just evolve?
It just evolved. You know, when something starts to work, my father was smart enough to go, well, let's keep it going. See what's working.
Let's see what else we can put in there.
Actually, in Bath, there was a different store there. First it was Centers and Percy's, and then there was Barden's, which was the two Newberry's guys that started a store there. And they didn't get along, so eventually they were going out of business. So they hired my dad to run the going out of business sale, which to me is the most stupid thing you could ever do. If you can go in business, all you got to put a sign up and say going out of business, and it's pretty easy. But anyway, he did that and said, this is pretty good. This might be a good location. And actually the landlord, John Morse, had already rented the basement to the motor vehicles, which would have been a terrible thing for Bath, terrible thing. But Bath was empty then.
Yes.
It was a sad place. And so, but the owner of Barden's had a lease. So he sold my father the lease, and so he could stay. And at first the landlord wasn't very happy with us because he thought he was going to do something different. But after we started working there and doing that, and he saw we could really attract a lot of people, he was
pretty happy.
He was one of my dad's best friends after that.
And your dad paid his rent.
He paid his rent, that's right.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this has certainly been an adventure,
Yeah.
a Maine adventure. I thank you for your time, John.
Well, thank
we
you.
We go back a long time.
We do.
And we've had a lot of fun. Hope you folks at home have enjoyed it as much as we have. So if you're in town or in the state of Maine, it's a Maine adventure. Make sure you stop and check them out as we celebrate Reny's 75th anniversary. Thanks for watching.
Reny's a Maine adventure.